All right, so I'm gonna do this walking video thing. Headed to school, headed to work. It's a lovely day. Okay, the question Kylie asked was, tell me how you began to suspect ADHD in yourself, and then the process of diagnosis. And that is a good connection from the last episode or the second episode, because I started to explain how I had failed evaluations at work, and then I talked briefly about taking the orange across the border, shooting a deer across somebody's fence. And I feel like there's one other incident of basically crossing boundaries, but still having that oh, it'll be fine, they won't mind, everything works out all the time, people like me, I'm nice. I sort of naivety. I remember in grade 5, I didn't really have any friends, or it certainly felt like I didn't, and I tried really hard to learn how to get people to like me, and then eventually I began to have friends, and was able to learn about that. Throughout high school, I seemed to learn that skill a little bit more. Had some real friends, especially in music, but certainly loved hanging out with all the rugby and track and field folks, and even lots of good things happening in classes. Anyways, but there were those moments where I crossed boundaries and was really naive about it. It's like, oh, it'll be fine, and it wasn't fine. That deer got taken away. I had a $300 something fine, and looking back, of course, I had crossed somebody's fence line, and I was trespassing, and so the legitimate or the appropriate response is to lose the deer. But it was so heartbreaking, such an emotional thing, because my kids were there with the conservation officer when he said, well, I have to confiscate the deer. And it was such a tragedy because they had been there when I shot it, and they were so happy. So they were so sad, but it was great because they got to realize and witness real life consequences to crossing boundaries that you're not supposed to. They were also there with me for that orange incident, and suffered the consequences of that moment. That was a little different. We weren't trying to, and I tried to admit it, but nonetheless, there was something missing, and I began to realize, I kept on looking at those things and thinking, man, what out, and I was having that trouble at work, and I had all these things, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm fairly competent in a lot of ways. I've got 3 university degrees. I ended up managing to get married and have some children, and we're still married, and it's great. It's pretty realistic, but I love it. I love Lauren, and I'm super happy, and I love the kids, and again, we have our normal human moments. So I had these things that were working well, but I better go this way so I don't have to chat with the kids. I see walking to school, left early to do the video. So there were these boundary moments, and it was not working. And so there was this gap, and it was becoming really obvious that there was some serious problems. Oh yeah, I failed my teaching practicum in university, and they didn't. how's this for an interesting assessment? They said, well, we don't know what it is. We just think you need more time. Thanks, that's really clear and helpful. So I actually had a job lined up in Williams Lake, a maternity leave, and couldn't go to it because I failed in the last 2 weeks of my practicum, which is against the handbook, the UVic handbook, but they did it anyway. I protested, but they were like, no, because I wasn't good at being systematic with records, etc. So fair enough. They did everything right on paper and totally got me. And looking back, I failed my teaching practicum because I couldn't follow the formatting for lesson plans, and I was not good at it because I had just come out of grad school for interpretation and values and thought, well, I'm doing what they're asking. I'm just doing it in a different format because I'm so smart and I understand formatting, which may even have been the case, but I wasn't good at submitting to authority. So yeah, that was another thing where I was like, I'm going to do it my own way and it'll be fine. And in some ways that creativity is a good thing. It's a superpower, but not when you're supposed to submit to people who maybe want to do things the same way every single time. So I failed my teaching practicum, nearly got fired for incompetence. I crossed the border with an orange and, lost a day of work and paid a big fine and had to go in every time I crossed the border after that. And growing up in Vancouver, crossing the border is really common. So that was funny, or a pain. Had that deer taken away. And so I was having these really big emotional moments, or really heavy emotional moments. And those things were getting through. My choir teacher in high school got through because he had all of these heavy emotional moments. I'm not convinced that was like the best teaching method, but I connected with it and became a music teacher. Oh, good morning. Oh, look, a squirrel. No, that's a dog. Yeah. So that was what led me to wonder about it. But then my union people, while I was struggling, said, hey, we think you should get tested. So the union in the district, I'm not sure exactly how it worked out, but they supported paying for a neuropsych analysis in Kelowna. And it was really fun. I got to go and do a day-long bunch of tests, cognitive tests, which I enjoyed. It was totally enjoyable. And one of the things they said in the report was, yeah, he did fine at these tests. I tested pretty high verbally and pretty average mathematically, but I was always asking the person administering the tests about the tests while we were doing the tests. Oh, is this for this? Oh, this is interesting. What about this? And so they pointed that out in the report and said, well, he's not even really paying attention to the task because he's asking about the task during the task. Which was kind of funny to think that wasn't normal. Anyway, so I went and did a neuropsych analysis. But not everybody's going to do that. So to answer your question, Kylie, I know some people who have gotten started on a diagnosis with their family doctor. And one of the big questions about it is if the medicine helps you function better, then that indicates that the thalamus is not working properly or your neurology isn't functioning, right? Because it's a problem of uptake of dopamine, and so maybe that's a neurotransmitter situation. I'm going to learn more and get into that more, but it's a physical thing. So if you take the medicine and it does nothing, maybe you need a different medicine, or maybe it's not a physical thing. Maybe it's just something else. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert. Don't take my medical information as some sort of, oh, he said this. But I have found a huge difference with the medicine, and I'll get into that next time because this video is getting long. But that's how I began to think, oh, okay, something is interfering with my ability to function. And it was interfering with my job. So it was people around me who suggested, hey, you know what? Have a look at this. Now, the other thing that I've been learning is that 18% of us have the genetics that are predisposing us for ADHD. So it's just probably a lot more common than we thought. And I think that's worth considering as well. All right, well, thanks for the questions. And next time I'll talk about the before and after of medicine, because it has made quite a difference. And again, medicine isn't the only answer. Went for another run yesterday, but it's making a difference, and it helped me keep my job. Okay, thanks for asking. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying this, if you're learning something, feel free to share, subscribe, etc. Thanks.